to keep in mind with the FPL plan, it's not like a typical building that's going to most likely appreciate over time. It is TPP. They depreciate it, so over time the value is actually going to go down. This is the biggest year is the first year when it came on the roll, but then over time the value goes down as they depreciate the equipment and the property. So we're not always going to have the same amount of money coming out of that property down the road. And then on the right, you can see that our ad valorem revenues have increased pretty substantially since 2013. You have about 15 million back in 2013, and now we're up to almost about 37 million in ad valorem values, and that's the same millage rate. Millage rate has not changed since 2011 or 2012, 2007. Okay, it's been a long time. So this is a breakdown of the tax bill. So as I mentioned, the increase before that was just for Danny Beach, and you can see that we're only 29.7% of the entire tax bill. School board is the highest at 32.2, followed by Broward County at almost 28%, and then you have a few other smaller ones. And we actually, if you weren't aware, we have two different tax rates depending on where you live in the city, because we have the North Broward Hospital District and the South Broward Hospital. So it's just where your address is gets levied differently. So I chose the higher one for this display, and it's about 7% of the tax bill. I know this is kind of hard to see, but this is all 31 cities in Broward County and all their millage rates, and we're really smack dab in the middle of the distribution at 5.9998. Really, the thing to keep in mind with this is that that black line is the assessed value base. And you can see for the most part, there's really no relationship between the tax base and the millage rate. Every city is different. Some cities have a low millage rate, but they charge a lot higher assessment rates, like Weston. They have a very low millage rate, but you're going to pay thousands towards their special districts and their assessments. Then you have Lauderdale Lakes all the way on the left that has a very low tax base, and they have a really high millage rate. But then you have some other cities like Sea Ranch Lakes and Lazy Lake that have a very low assessed value, and their millage rate is moderate. So it's really just a matter of every situation in every city is different, and we just focus on what we do in Danny Beach and maximizing our tax revenues. Talk about our strategic plan briefly, just a refresher that Danny Beach City Government, our mission is to provide excellent municipal services in a financially sound and environmentally sound manner. We provide outstanding customer service and work in partnership with our community. And then these are sort of the four pillars of the investments that our budget provides. This came from our strategic plan as well. And from our contractual relationships with vendors to how we diversify our revenues to all the master planning efforts that have resulted in prioritization of these investments, our recreation team and the investment in every park in the city and the commitment to creating new parks, to all the investments in public safety personnel, facilities, and equipment. City administration, with your support, has been executing on all these fronts and continues to provide excellent services at a great value. So getting into the budget a little bit, this is a breakdown of our new positions for this coming year that have been requested by all departments and that have been included in the budget and then have the support of the city administration. We have 16 new positions. That includes 4 additional BSO law enforcement officers, and that's a total of around $654,000 because we're starting 2 in October and 2 in April. It's going to be 1 lieutenant, 1 deputy in October, and then 2 deputies in April. And then we have 12 new key positions. Pretty much every department in the city we're expanding our services as our citizens are demanding more from us, and the amount of work and the amount of things that are occurring in the city require more people to maintain and administer all these this operation that we have in our footprint. And obviously, looking at the chart on the right half of the chart is all of our public safety. It's about half of our total headcount. Although they're contract employees, we can include them in the headcount of actual personnel in the city. So public safety is a huge part of city government. You'll see that later in the budget breakdown that public safety makes up about half of our budget in the general fund. The cost of city benefits this year is not changing. Prices for our health insurance have been maintained. Prices for all of our other benefits are level. And we provide a phenomenal benefits package that positions us well against our competition, both in the municipal and in the private sector. One point I want to bring up tonight is that we're asking for consensus. We did this last year. We're asking for consensus to be able to recruit for these positions. Several of them are slated for an October start date, and we want to be able to start recruiting because other cities are actually out there recruiting now with positions saying pending budget approval. And we want to get your consensus tonight that if you have no issue with these positions, that we can go ahead and get started with the ones that are budgeted for October. Here is a summary of all the capital investments that are in this budget. And we're investing all over the city. We're investing in all of our utilities, stormwater, streets, public services, facilities, the fleet, information technology. So I'm going to break down a little bit more detail some of those investments, but you can see that there's no area that's not being looked at and invested in. Citywide, our revenues, you can see we get a third of our revenues from taxes, and then followed by other financing sources, which is transfers between funds. And then we have permits, fees, and special assessments. You know that we have a fire, a stormwater, and a solid waste special assessment, and those are a pretty large source of revenue. And then we also have charges for services, that's where our water and sewer utility fees fall into. So that's why that's a pretty big slice. On the expenditure side, we have about half of our budget is operating expenditures. 16% of our budget is personnel, 17% is capital outlay. And again, that's for all the projects that we're recommending to invest in. Our operating expenditures is comprised of professional, contractual services, operating supplies, maintenance of facilities and equipment, travel and training, and any other expenditures related to operations. Talk briefly about the general fund. 62% of our general fund revenue comes from the ad valorem comes from taxes, which includes ad valorem, local option, and utility taxes. We get several $1 million from FPL for electricity utility taxes. Then comes permits, fees, and special assessments. Permits, fees are very minimal in the general fund. All that permitting activity is in the building permit fund, but we do have some in the general fund for other purposes. We also have franchise fees from FPL, which is a multi-million-dollar line item. Solid waste hauling activity for franchise fees, and the fire assessments are included in there as well. It's around $7 million. Then we have other financing sources, which is a large source. That's our transfers in and out of the general fund for administrative cost allocation. And intergovernmental is a significant source of revenue we get from the state of Florida, half-cent sales tax, state revenue sharing, and some others there. And then on the expenditure side, as I mentioned before, half the general fund budget is for public safety, and rightfully so. We have the best police and fire through our BSO contract. Captain Thrala and Chief Pelliser understand how to maximize the dollars that are in our annual consideration. That consideration is just a monthly payment that we make to BSO, and it contains line items for many things. If they don't spend the money, then we don't get it. So they know, they look at the budget, and they make sure they squeeze every penny out of that consideration every year so we get what we're paying for. And then after that comes general government. That's mostly our non-departmental division, which we have liability insurance, some pension contributions, and other transfers out for capital projects to the capital projects and grants fund. And after that is our public services, which is the administration, landscaping, streets, cemetery, transfers to the fleet and facilities internal services fund. After that comes recreation sorry about that. Hold on. Okay. After that comes recreation. This year, we have a new special events division for our signature city events. And then the remainder is the administrative departments of the city. And we now have also a marketing and communications division with 2 employees in there, and that's going to continue to grow as well to support operations. Reserves is always on everyone's mind. How much money do we have and what can we spend it on? That big green chunk on top, that is our unassigned reserve. That's our rainy day fund or stabilization fund. Back in 2018, it was under $22 million, and now it's over $27 million. The blue section in between is assigned, which that's mostly our disaster reserve, and that's at around $9 million. That doesn't change too much, but it's there. That can absorb 2 or possibly 3 hurricanes if we were impacted during a particular season. Now, the red section at the bottom, that's our restricted revenues, and it's interesting because you can see it was very small starting in 2018, and now we're up to around $7 million. That's impact fees. Obviously, we've had a lot of projects in the city going forward, and they pay impact fees for public safety, for administration, and for recreation. So we use those impact fees for expansion projects like the new fire EOC administration building or the West Wing administrative office expansion. We've also appropriated $500,000 in this budget from recreation impact fees to do the design at the Olson Park property. And you may notice at the top right in the green, there's a small decrease in the total reserves because that we're appropriating the use of the impact fees for Olson Park in the budget. Talk briefly about some general fund capital investments. And we have a couple in public services, bus stop improvements, and Oasis project funding we're transferring to the capital projects fund. In the streets maintenance, we have street lighting. The corridor master plan will continue. Speed limit signs, LAP project that we're funding that's beginning this year for Northwest First Street. And then we have the sidewalk master plan tier 2 repairs. Those are going to continue. And then we always have $500,000 for roadway and alleyway repaving every year. And then under recreation, we have $1 million in the budget for PJ Mealy Master Plan design. Chester Bird funding, we are applying to the FERDAP grant, and we know that that won't cover the whole thing, so we're appropriating some additional funding to make sure we have a budget to cover that project. The Olson Middle School design, as I mentioned, and then you have Boise Waiters Master Planning. Talk about the utility funds. Our water and sewer rates, we adjusted them recently, so we have a 5-year plan, and we're reshifting the cost there to provide more towards the water fund. Our stormwater fee increased for investment in resiliency and mitigation of future flood events, as you're aware. And then we have a few significant investments, about $1.3 million in the water fund for both the water line and the water plant. In the sewer fund, we're putting $5 million towards reconstruction of lift stations, and then in the stormwater fund, we do have the extra money that's in there for the additional projects that we're going to do, but those are going to be scoped out and designed this coming year. But we do have 2 projects in there. One is the tidal valves that are allowing for, they close when it floods the canals, and then the water doesn't back up into the streets. And then we have a drainage pipe Northwest 2nd Avenue that's being designed right now. Lastly, I want to talk about second to last, talk about the internal service funds. These are for our facilities maintenance, fleet management, and the information technology fund. And we have investments across all of them. These are funded from transfers from the other funds in the city. And all that activity is kind of brought into one fund, and it's all spent there on these important projects. So facilities, some of this covers the actual beach area. So you have restrooms. We have a storage container for the equipment in public services for the facilities. We have the dune walkover. We have pier and exterior repairs. And then we have Nyberg Swanson funding that is coming from the ARPA, as well as renovations to the building department. That project's going to get started, and we're supplementing their budget with a little bit more funding. Fleet has about $1.3 million in vehicle replacements and new vehicles for both our operating administration departments and then in the utility funds. And then lastly, the information technology department. We're taking on the website redesign this coming year, and we're also going to be budgeting for, we have various computer replacement technology needs and other equipment repairs, as well as an ERP system replacement. We're starting the process there. We're aggregating some funding from the utility fund, from the building permit fund, to start seeding the funds to move forward with that. Okay, lastly, Ocean Park Enterprise. Some of these improvements on the bottom were also on the other slide, but they really kind of serve both areas. So we've discussed this a little bit, but we combined the marina, the parking, and the pier funds for this coming fiscal year into the one Ocean Park Enterprise Fund. All these operating areas they're in the same physical area, and they rely on each other. You know, we can't have a pier if we don't have parking, and if we don't have a pier, we wouldn't need parking. So it all kind of works together. And with the parking increase that we had last night, we're going to have continued investments in this economic engine because it's really what it is. We will have Lucky Fish lease payments on the horizon once they apply for building permits. The clock starts ticking. And then we have the new project with the quarter deck kiosk that's going to be coming soon and providing additional revenue. So we're going to have approximately $3 million in unrestricted net position at the end of this coming year based on our budget proposal. And then we have a few projects down there at the bottom that we're going to be taking on this current year. Lastly, just want to thank you all and say that we have a very strong financial condition citywide. We have the lowest pension liabilities that we've ever had. We have record high reserves, record high cash balances. We did issue the debt for C.W. Thomas. We're going to be issuing more for P.J. Mealy, but we have the capacity to handle the increased debt burden, and we are going to continue to make smart, impactful investments at every corner of the city. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Mr. DiPaolo. Wonderful presentation. Before we begin with the questions, do we have consensus for them to start recruiting the personnel, Quest personnel? Okay, we have consensus.
Thank you.
All right, any questions? Commissioner James?
Get mine out of the way. I just have one question. how do you guys project where the reserves are going to be? I saw a slight decline in the reserves from 2023 to 2024. Um, is that just for 1 year, or it wasn't that much? But I want to see what the trend is because it was trending upward. Is there a reason that there's a change in that?
I'm gonna pull up that slide. I'll pull up that slide.
Okay.
Yeah, so we are projecting a surplus with this current fiscal year, and then as I mentioned earlier, there's a slight decline for 24, and that's because we have a balanced budget where we're not using any reserves except for the use of 500,000 in impact fees for Olson Park.
Okay. Um, the things that I wanted to, I'll guess I'll start with what the mayor was discussing last night. That all of us was at Collins Elementary. That I wanted to include in his budget. I spoke with the city manager about this. I wanted to have seed money, for lack of better terms, to help the school. That school is in great despair. I don't know if you all have been there. Um, I don't. It's really bad as far as outside in the play area. The grass right now is almost to my mid calves, and that's dangerous for rodents and snakes and bugs and all those things in a rainy season. But I wanted to put, uh, I don't know how much money do we have in our contingency left
For the
for this current year?
did we appropriate funding last night? We
Yes.
did,
Yes.
right? 50. So there's approximately $70,000 left.
Okay. I wanted to appropriate some of the money from this year's contingency and maybe have um, budget next year's with um, the understanding or some type of an agreement with the school board that they match those funds. Those funds would be earmarked that they can only be used for that. And we wait to see what the school board is going to do. Maybe we go to a school board meeting and say, look, we're putting. So I was going to say $50,000 from our current contingency, and then $50,000 from the budget. That's um, a discussion that I what happened? And her eyes got big. That's a discussion we had earlier. I know the discussion you said maybe just $50,000. That was what you said, and I thought that we could use some of our current contingency monies to go a little higher than that, not the entire $250,000, but this is a schools. These are schools that our residents and our kids go to. This is a school that hasn't been rebuilt since it's been built, and I know they consider being rebuilt, adding trailers to the back of it or modulars, what they call it, but it really hasn't been rebuilt. It's kind of the same facility. They've had a few upgrades. So whatever number it is, that was the number that I thought that we could do. That's fair to me, but of course, this is a discussion for everyone. So I'll start there with my comments of what we want to do as a team.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner James. Is this one? Okay. Commissioner Davis?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner James. That was Collins was on my list as well. It's been on my list prior to last night, as I have met with the school board member who's currently representing us, Daniel Fogan Holy, for District 1. I've met with him. I've met with several of his administrators along with the school principal because like the mayor quoted me last night, I wouldn't let my worst child's enemy play on that playground. It is terrible, 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 and nobody's child should have to endure that. So we did take a tour. Principal Jackson took us on a tour last month, and so we've been having conversations about that. The principal's number two priorities are the drainage problem that's been at Collins, in addition to the playground. We all know that Collins has a lake. It has been a terrible lake for a very long time, and we kept finger pointing. That's the school board's property. That's not the city property. Um, we are investing $22 million in C.W. Thomas Park, and right behind us, we have a school that looks like it's been neglected since it's been erected. It's just in terrible shape. So I think it's an embarrassment to the city for us um, to have that, to invest in our parks and not to invest in our schools. But per my conversations with the administration and with the school board member, we talked about having a recreation license agreement. We currently have a recreation use agreement that is current with Collins. It was started in 2010 and it expires in December of 2025. And so we do have an agreement, a use agreement with them, but we don't have a recreation license agreement like we do have at Olson and like we have at PJ Millie. So I agree with having the conversations. I've started having the conversations, but I don't want to put lipstick on a pig. I don't want to just put a brand new playground there without fixing the infrastructure because I think they go hand in hand. So I think we need to have a bigger conversation about how to have a comprehensive plan to get those two priorities that the principal has stated, which is also I think should be our priority as well. So I believe in having further continued conversations with the school board, with the new superintendent, who is all about the educational facilities plan. If I have pulled that up, and they have adopted a district facilities plan. They have not done any improvements in Collins since 2018. They do have new SMART program that they have slated, that they have Collins on the list, but it's for fire alarms, sprinklers, security upgrades, building envelopes, electrical improvements, media center, and additional funding for scope. So I don't know what that is. But at the end of the day, the drainage problem is not on there and the playground is not on there. So I really want us to think about the smart way to start to put those funds together, but to look at the big picture as far as the lake and the playground together. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Vice Mayor, you want to speak? Vice Mayor Llewellyn?
So a couple of things. I don't have a problem with putting some seed money in. I think we need to be careful though, because we just saw a slide, I believe, that said that the school board taxes people are, it's like 32% of the taxes already. Although they may not be focusing on Collins as far as what needs to be done there, um, they're, I don't know that they're going to agree to work with us on that in the future. We have a whole new administration there now, so that's going to take a lot of lobbying and working with the school board in order to try to get them to come around and do that. I know that many people have tried to do this with them in the past, and it just hasn't gone anywhere. The lake, as you're referring to, I want to say that I heard at one point that that's actually supposed to be like that. It's a retention pond, right? Some of it is. So if that's the case, then I don't know. I mean, we could maybe have somebody look at it or see, what needs to be done if something needs to be done. But I don't know that that's really something that we want to touch. Am I wrong? wait. I'm asking Frank a question.
If I may.
Go ahead.
Okay, so two things. The first thing is the drainage that was mentioned, and I'm not sure about the retention area, but I do know that we are bringing a project forward on Northwest Second because of the investment in C.W. Thomas, and we want to make sure that that area is dry. And I'm sure that's going to impact, and I know Public Services can add more to that. But when it comes to the funding of the school, and I want to say this as diplomatically as possible because I support all of you in what you're saying. However, the city has to invest in its infrastructure, and we are by no means at the finish line of what we need to do just to take care of the city, the obligations that we have. And the school board is obligated to maintain their facilities and their buildings. And we work with them, and they demolished Olson, and now we have an agreement, and we're going to invest millions of dollars in that facility, and they're going to get to utilize that facility as well. And I think that at this point, I don't think it's a good idea to put a lot of money on the table until we really have some conversations about our partnership with the school board and what their willingness is to do the deferred maintenance that needs to be done. Because at the end of the day, it is their responsibility. And we should be good partners with them, but at the same time, we should also make good on our obligations. And I would caution against taking on a significant portion of that cost when the school board hasn't we need to see what their willingness is to take care of the issue that is their responsibility.
Right, and I know even with the Olson situation, that was going on for years and years and years, and everybody was trying to get them to do something. And now, mind you, it's like I said, different administration now, and things may be changing, but we don't know yet. And I'm hesitant to start throwing money at a problem if we don't know that it's actually going to get fixed. That's what my concern is. So that's all.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Commissioner Salvino?
Thank you, Mayor. Listen, Frank, you're pretty much on track. What I was going to say, I mean, the school board is obligated to fix these schools, and I don't know how the city can be involved in fixing it out of our taxpayers' money. As a taxpayer to the city, and I do have some extra property, I pay a lot of money towards the school board, and I don't understand why that monies are not being allocated to do the repairs in our city. I know that we get, and correct me if I'm wrong, and just trying to set things in order. But when we collect the sales tax in this city, don't we get a percentage, a small piece of that back from the state? Okay,
We do.
we do, right? So I don't understand why that if we're collecting school board money in this city with our taxes, our tax base going up, the higher our property values go, the higher those taxes are from the school board that we're getting charged a lot of money on. Why aren't we down there fighting the school board, telling them this money that we're paying from our citizens should be going into Collins and Daniel Elementary and everything else at Olson, some of the schools are here. I feel that we have we talk about giving $100,000 to the schools when we're going to get beat up next month or next year when the rains come and we have more drainage problems elsewhere. We can't keep giving our money that we need to do our own infrastructure when the school board has already collected our money. And if I remember years ago when we started the lottery, that was money was supposed to be allocated towards the school systems as well. And I don't even know where that's coming from. So maybe we should be challenging the school board instead of challenging ourselves with donating money that belongs to the city not to be given out. I'm not opposed to listen, I went to the REACH program at Olson. I mean, I'm involved with, I don't mind helping out and going to schools and so on. But I just feel that we're reaching for our money where the school board needs to be paying their money. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Salvino. Commissioner James, would you like to add?
Yes, thank you. Yes, part of that is a retention pond. However, when it rains, the entire playground floods too. So it's not just the area of the retention that holds the drainage correctly. So I do agree there are many infrastructure issues. I also know that even prior to me being on this commission, there were conversations about Old Olson, and we can sit here all day long and say, that's not our responsibility because I agree, it's not our responsibility per se. Technically, it's not. However, this is where our students, these are where our residents are going. We want to attract quality people to our city. We have to have quality schools. We all know the school board hasn't done right with the bond money that they were supposed to do. So if we're going to just wait on the school board to fix an issue, it's not going to be fixed. And I'm not saying just give them the money. That's why I said earmark the money, because if it doesn't work out, the money still comes back to us. But I do think that we should at least plan for it. I hear a lot this administration tells us to already plan for stuff, so it can be shovel ready or show that we have skin in the game. And that's what I'm asking to do, because if we're waiting on the school board, it's going to get kicked down the road year after year after year after year, like other issues have been with the schools. So while I do understand that, I don't mind lobbying. I don't mind being the liaison. I don't mind going to the school board meetings. I don't even have a child in that school, but that's how important it is to me for the safety and wellness and the quality of life for not only our residents but the children that some of them don't even live in our city that come to our schools. That school again has been neglected, and we all know that. But I'm not asking to not have those conversations, not speak about infrastructure as well as the playground. But you're going to turn around, and it's going to be 5 years, and it's going to be in the same situation because someone isn't willing to take a stand. So I'm not saying that it's technically our responsibility. I know whose responsibility it is. I've argued with the school board for years, and finally we were able to with different people sitting in that seat at the mayor and continuing those conversations, get things done. But I just feel like if we're willing to show that we're willing to help do those things, that maybe we'll get a different response. And guess what? Maybe we don't, but at least we're trying and putting forth an effort as a commission to do the best that we can do, for our cities. Our school that is in despair. Thank you. So with everything, I know the mayor is probably going to have his comments, but I do want to see if we could support it at some level, as a commission, and kind of get a consensus to or not on that, so we can move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll add to that, if you could, give me a second, Commissioner Davis. Uh, I think this is a very valid point that you're making, and of course, there's always a battle with the school board that we have. Investing in our children and in our schools is definitely a main priority of mine, and earmarking this money, whatever we decide on, from our contingency fund, is going to be well utilized, I would say, and we know that it's going to be used for, the actual playground, what we're discussing right now. So, it's not like it goes to the school board and they misallocate the funds, as it's happened before. I'm not accusing anybody, but this provides us leverage, right? We have a lot of leverage with the school board by investing in Olson Park. We're going to put millions and millions of dollars in that park for Olson to use it. So that opens up the negotiating table right there with the school board. And, it puts us in a good position to lobby for Collins, to lobby for Dania Elementary. So showing, look, we're putting millions of dollars in the park right next to Olson, which is your guys' school. You're not footing the bill on that. We're actually going to put towards some money from our contingency fund for our commission towards a playground for Collins Elementary. So we need you guys to step up also, because we have skin in the game, like you said, Commissioner. And when you show that you have skin in the game, and you show that you're investing, and that residents are investing on top of their tax dollars that they pay towards the school, then I don't know how much more motivation we could give the school board to make a decision. It's almost a no-brainer if we present it to them. I really don't think we have to lobby too hard for it. And I'm all for earmarking, 50,000 is fine from our contingency fund, towards the playground. I don't want to add into our budget towards it, but I'm okay with $50,000 towards, the playground. And we're already investing millions into Olson Park, and we do have the infrastructure project on Northwest Second, and it ties in with, C.W. Thomas Park as well. So that's going to mitigate some of those infrastructure issues that we have. But when you're talking infrastructure at a public school, that's millions of dollars, and we really can't foot that bill. Like Frank said, we have our own issues, and we're behind in stormwater drainage, and we need to catch up. So I think this is definitely a great gesture. It's a great investment of our contingency money. And, we had $70,000, we have $20,000 left. And, in 30 days, it's just going to go away. So this is a great investment. It's a great, I think the commission coming together like this for our terrific Tigers at Collins is a good thing overall. It's an easy leverage that we gain with the school board, and it makes it kind of a no-brainer decision. And, I don't want this to dominate our conversation. I hope we can move on from this. But, yeah, I think we made a decision. Hopefully, we're pretty close to coming to agreement. But, Commissioner Davis, you could add to that.
No, I do agree with you, Mayor, on the majority of the points. I just want to make sure that we're coming from the perspective. I'm hearing challenge, I'm hearing battle with the school board, because those have been the relationships in the past. And I have begun to develop new relationships with the new school board, with the superintendent. And I don't think that we should look at it as a challenge, but look at it as an opportunity for partnership. The new school board member is very interested in making Collins a priority. I know that because I've had several conversations with him. So I would like to continue the conversations that I've already begun with the school board to keep that relationship going and to keep Collins at front of mind, with fixing, and becoming partners with them while we have skin in the game.
Okay, so
This-
do I have a consensus for $50,000 of our contingency fund towards the playground for Collins Elementary? Yes? Okay, we have consensus for that. Wonderful.
Is there a problem?
Please.
I think I think that, and I'm glad you guys did this because, Candido and I were talking, envisioning you guys presenting one of those big checks in front of the school board. But I think what has helped us here, and I know that this started advocacy when Commissioner James was mayor, and the baton was passed to then Mayor Llewellyn. And I remember going in front of the school board and having that advocacy. And a month later, they were calling that they were able to find the money and the demolition commenced. So I think that the power that you all have with that visual of saying, look, even though the majority of our budgetary dollars in our city go to the school board, we have set this aside. What our parks director has been doing in Olson, it's going to be millions of dollars that we're going to take on, but we're going to augment our green spaces and our parks, and it's great. But I think the presence that you all and the power of being in front of that school board is going to be amazing. But you're going to put the ball back on their court and say, look, we're investing and we need you to invest as well.
Please, Vice Mayor Llewellyn.
Real quick, and not that I'm telling anybody what to do, because I'm certainly not going to do that, but something that I found that seemed to be helpful in helping us to get the Olson thing moved along was number one, was emailing Anne Murray every week about it. And every time I saw the superintendent, I pulled him aside and brought it up. And he actually got annoyed at me at a public meeting at one point because he's like, we're not here to talk about capital funds. And I'm like, I don't care. You're still going to talk about it. So it's a matter of, and it may not be that same sort of relationship this time around, but I think that's exactly right. If every time we see school board member, the superintendent, whomever it might be, say something about it, and then it's the squeaky wheel, squeaky wheel gets the oil. So that's all.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'm happy we had consensus on that, and we can move forward, with our negotiations with the school board. Yeah, it's certainly not a hostile relationship we have, and we have great representatives in this city that establish solid relationships with those members of the school board. Ms. Hickson was just at our event on Sunday, or Saturday, so just right there. Yeah, solid relationships. Yeah, and the beach as well. Okay, anything else, commissioners? Commissioner James.
Yeah, I wanted to finish going down my list. I also spoke to the city manager about the electric charging stations that are serving us no purpose in our garage. To have, there are a lot of places, whether it's universities, malls, hospitals that have electric charging stations that are free, and they are not of a great cost to the city. And so I know in speaking with the city manager, she was going to speak with the developers that are in City Place and see if we can push the cost in a partnership with them. And so I wanted to have that at least as a pilot program to just see how much it costs, because even with seeing how much it's costing for the developer, if it had to come back to us just to see what that number is and if we wanted to add that to the budget, because I don't see it being more than $5,000-$10,000 in a year. So, but I don't know.
I think there's from previous meetings like League of Cities, and there's grants available for charging stations, and it's really vamped up a lot. So
Yeah,
if we could look into that.
We just need a better one, because that one is
Yeah, no, I tried to help a woman
It's
use
really
it,
bad.
and it was unsuccessful.
is very slow.
Yeah.
Not a lot of. Go ahead,
Candido can
Candido.
give you guys an update because we're looking into that now, and we believe that it's a good investment.
Definitely. Thank you, Manager. Candido Sosa Cruz, Deputy City Manager. Commissioner James, as you stated, the chargers are very slow. They're outdated. They're probably like first generation. The beginning of this year, we started the process of looking into the contract and see if there's a contract in place, seeing how to go out. Our beach ranger manager, Barbara Euro, who oversees parking, not just in the beach, but also the parking garage, already started the process working with Sasha, our procurement officer. We already have 3 quotes. She's working in identifying one quote to move forward. So we're happy to say that very shortly we're going to be implementing new charging stations at the garage.
Thank you. At no cost or at cost?
No, it's our garage. We'll be paying for it.
Okay, awesome.
Now, remember, once we get the lease dollars for those 49 spaces,
Mm-hmm.
from Mr. Abel, that will go back to continue to be invested in our parking garage for our community.
Right.
And part of that comes from the parking fund. That's not general fund money.
Okay. And yeah, like when you see where these parking stations are all across the country, they're in places that force you to get out of your car, go patronize businesses, walk the town, not just sit there because it takes some time to charge your car. So I also think that's a way to draw people to our city, whether it, in our arts and entertainment district that is going to eventually thrive here in our city and all the other development that's coming. So I think that'll be a good boost for our businesses and just having different people when you can search for charging locations and it brings you to City Hall and you see all we have to offer here. So that was a good marketing place. I wanted to add a breast cancer event, an annual breast cancer event in the budget. I know that with my personal contingencies, I am doing sort of a reception, not a big event, because time is crunch time. I know that we used to always have this in the budget. When former Mayor Grace was the mayor here, we used to have it right here in the atrium. I wanted to bring that back. I think it is it's honorable to be able to honor those who are fighting this nasty disease, and it is something that can unify and bring our communities together. So, do I have consensus for that?
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. I know that the Dania Chamber of Commerce has a breast cancer event in October also.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
I'm just
fine.
saying I think they throw one too. Just
It's probably have
I'm
several
sure there's
several
there's
ones. Yeah, but I
several.
want to throw like a outside of this year, which would be a reception here, like to have a big one where you have mammogram vans, like a big parks and recreation type event, not one that will always just be here at City Hall because there are a lot of resources that are free resources that we can provide to our residents who can't afford to do certain things. So I just wanted to add this to the list of events for you, Ashley.
Sure. Do I have consensus from the commission? Breast cancer awareness? Or no? Sure. Go ahead.
When I was mayor, there was a woman that I was working with, Andrea Ivory, who has an organization that does that, and she brings the mammogram vehicle to. She actually brought it to the Southwest over, by Public Works, the Southwestern Community Center, and they were able. They went around. They knocked on people's doors. They had people make appointments for mammograms. They were there for like 2 or 3 days, and then they would, or a couple different weeks, I think it was. I can't remember now. But they went around to people's houses and knocked on their doors, and then they brought them over for mammograms. And that was free to the city. So I think that's something that you might want to look into. Yep.
But just to verify, I have consensus from the commission. Okay.
We're
you got
looking at
consensus.
like a 10K contingency earmark for year one?
20,000.
For a reception here, 20?
Contingency. I was talking about next year to do
Oh,
an
you mean
actual
Oc-
event.
yeah, but this year,
No, not this year. We're talking about putting
Oh.
in the budget for next year. But this year, we're going to have the reception here.
Out of-
Okay.
out of your
And out of
contingency.
my
Okay.
personal
so
contingency.
in fiscal 2025, an event. This year, for 2024 October, it'll be,
No,
No,
2024
2024 October is next
October.
year.
Yeah.
oh,
It'll-
2023 from next year's budget.
I'm so confused.
No, Anna.
This
Next
this
year. It's for
October,
this
we're
budget
going to
for
be here in the
2024.
atrium.
Okay.
Next year, we're going to be at
2024.
a
Next
park.
football
Right,
season.
2024 budget, but 2023 calendar.
Yeah.
No, 2024 budget and calendar.
Oh, so you don't want to do anything?
Okay, so this year
It's
is going to
October,
come
it's
out
coming
of
out
my
of her
contingency,
contingency
and it's
fund.
not
It's
going to be
not gonna be as big.
$20,000
What?
because I don't
Okay.
have
It's be a smaller event here at City Hall. We're opposed. We're gonna
the
use
event
parking-
we
parking
spoke
and
about
rec.
earlier. Will
Right,
be
the
here this year, this calendar year.
So we're gonna have a reception in October here.
Yes.
Can I,
Yes.
And then
Well,
we're putting money aside for next year for major events.
hold. Can I ask?
Yeah.
Can I ask? All right. So this October, how much money do you need?
$0 because I'm
Okay.
taking it out of my contingency.
So when is the event that you're asking about where we're looking at earmarks some money? When would that be held?
Next year.
What date?
October. I don't
So that
have
would
it.
be fiscal 25 then.
Oh, yeah,
We'll-
it will be
we'll-
fiscal 25.
So we'll talk about that next summer.
I'm just talking about the calendar. All that other stuff is
So
on,
it's
it's on
fiscal
you.
25.
Yeah,
Like I said.
so then maybe we can put a tentative earmark in this coming budget because we'll have to start
That's what I'm.
planning
That's
it
what I'm saying.
for
We have to
October.
spend the money.
We'll have to start planning it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have money set aside.
Yeah. Everybody okay? Church say amen. Okay.
Okay, we have consensus.
That's not it, but I'll come back. I'll let someone else talk.
Vice Mayor.
Yes. So Frank, in those positions, yes, you, in those positions that we just gave you consensus to start moving on.
Yes.
I had spoken previously. I know to the city manager. Would I also speak to Frank about this? I can't remember. About a manager level position for like a transit and transportation manager to deal with all issues related to traffic and transportation and that sort of thing. Is that wrapped up in any of those positions?
Vice Mayor Llewellyn, when you discussed that with me, I met with Candido and we discussed, and I believe he took it to Fernando, if we needed to have a full-time person
Right.
to oversee the transit and the transportation component
Of our
Of-
infrastructure?
of our operations and infrastructure.
I recall that there was something about it. Well, I know I had said that it may not even be a permanent position. It might just be a temporary thing while we're going through this transition in the
We have a
city.
new project manager. in the
Right.
budget.
And I know there was a discussion about incorporating it into another position, but I just don't know if that's
We
what happened.
we have a new. We're gonna have October 1st a new project manager, Assistant Dinser, and our current project manager overseeing all the projects as well as helping out with any type of infrastructure for or traffic and transit. But we also have we still have part time, correct? Part time for transit that handles all the shuttles, and also anything dealing with the county as far as the micro transit. And also we work with the county on the micro transit, and then we have consultants that assist us, everything dealing with transit and traffic.
Right. Right, because my thinking on this was that that's an area that we have a lot of stuff going on with right now. There's a lot of issues with traffic. There's a lot that's going to be changing, as we know. And then there's a lot of different opportunities between our transportation buses that we have, as well as if I know we were talking to Circuit and or Freebie as another one. And then there was
the
just
county.
a number of different things that we were doing, and it just seemed like that could all be wrapped up under one position and have one person dealing with all of that, so
The-
it all
the-
interlocks.
The one position that oversees all
interconnects.
of transit is the Director of Public Services,
Okay.
along with the assistant that helps them manage it. Also working with the county, because a lot of the traffic and transit is handled by the county, and
Absolutely.
we support
I
them.
know.
So basically, we do have it covered as far as management.
Mhm.
Once we need to incorporate, we will work with our consultants to incorporate or to go out for grants dealing with traffic or transit.
All right. So in other words, there's not like an actual position, but there is like
There's
somebody who
multiple
handles.
there's multiple positions that support the director in addressing transit and traffic.
Okay. I still kind of feel like you need to have one person that's overseeing all of that. And I understand that's the director of public services overall, but I'm just saying I feel like it should be like in one person's wheelhouse, like somebody who's really an expert in that field because of all of the stuff that's going on in the city. And that's the main thing. And I
Would-
just don't want us to I don't want us reinventing the wheel or trying to do that, and I don't want to see us doing things that we then have to come back and fix later on. That's all. And I just or duplicating efforts. You know what I'm saying?
The experts that we utilize are the consultants. They're the subject matter experts that work in that specific field, and they guide us. There's not enough work for them to be in-house all day for the whole year. So it really depends on it's project driven. We work with the developers as well. They have their own traffic engineers, but we also hire our own to ensure that what they're telling us is accurate. Is there I'm still kind of confused as far as any specifics, that examples that you could bring up, because
I'm just saying, because there's so many different aspects to traffic and transportation and transit and all different things that are going on in the city right now. And it just seems to me like there could be somebody that just handles that. And it may, like I said, it might not be a full-time job. It might not be a permanent job. It might be something that we just need like an in-house consultant that's here regularly to deal with the issues that come up and actually see what other things we need to do to interconnect with other cities and that sort of thing. That's all.
we do have that. We have a transit consultant, the Corradino Group.
That's okay, but they're a consultant. They're not in-house. That's what I was trying to see if there might be a position that would make sense that could work with groups like the Corradino Group, that could work with, different outside sources, work with the MPO, work with all these different organizations that where you can get grant money, where and things like that.
I understand what you're explaining to
Uh-huh.
us, but I'm trying to explain that what you're explaining is many different things.
Yes, I know
It's
it is.
not it's not
I'm well aware.
like traffic is one component.
Yeah.
And again, when you mention traffic, what exactly are you referring to?
Traffic.
Because when you're talking about addressing traffic,
Yeah.
I'm not
Feel free.
understanding that
I was
part.
going to see if my colleagues wanted to join in because I think they're understanding me better. But
Commissioner
And then you
Davis?
talk about transit,
go ahead.
that's a different component. So that's why I'm trying to
So
separate them.
let's see. So I understand that those things are project driven, but we live in a city to where it's increasingly difficult to navigate and increasingly difficult to have a seat at certain tables because we lack certain connectivity. So from what I think I hear the vice mayor asking is, do we have someone like a visionary who can come up with different plans and ideas and partnerships and ways that we can try and mitigate traffic? And if they need the consultant to have different expertises in certain levels, you have that.
Which would be like a management level who's has that aspect of
So
it.
so I know it may not be a specific project at the time, but I do agree that we need someone who always has eyes and ears and different ideas and a vision for some type of traffic mitigation, because we're all going to be walking pretty soon because it's going to be impossible to drive, and we're not having we're having landscape projects or adding a bike lane, but how are we going to have, like, when me and the city manager, we sat down and we weren't a city, we weren't even considered for like a bright line station because we lack so much connectivity, because we are lacking what we really need to continue to progress. Like, we have development, we're progressing rapidly with that, but what are we doing as far as our transportation, and how much of a priority is that outside of a specific project? Was that?
That's the general idea. It's just that it's become a bigger and bigger issue in this city, and it's going to continue to be a bigger issue in the city. And it's an aspect of the infrastructure issues, and but it's very specific in that you're talking about being able to get around the city, whether it is due to traffic issues or it is transit issues or negotiating contracts or just seeing the bigger picture overall and trying to figure out better ways to do it, to make it happen, as opposed to going to different consultants for different things and them not necessarily communicating with each other and just communicating with us. But different ideas come from different places. Different people have different expertise, and I get that. But I'm just saying, like, maybe having like somebody that's just kind of wrangling all of that and putting their hands around it and kind of taking all the different points and putting it all together.
Understand.
That's all.
Uh,
And I even said it may not even be something that we do in the budget. It might be something at a mid-year adjustment, might be something down the road. But it's just something that I think we need to think about sooner rather than later, just because of everything that's happening in the city.
Traffic is impacted more by the region. It's more of a regional issue. It's not a city or Dania Beach issue.
Yeah,
It's-
Candido, if I could add to that,
Agreed.
I know that the county
talk
just
a little bit
hired a
about
new
DOT.
director of, the county just hired a new director of transportation. And she actually gave a presentation regarding the Primo plan
That's where I was going.
She did
at
at
the
the MPO
PEA meeting.
She did it
And
at MPO as well.
that's what that's what we need to do is work more with the county and make sure that we're in communication with them and the DOT when it comes to dealing with
And the
with our
prim-
traffic
and
issues,
the
because
Primo
it's
plan-
not just a city issue. This is a you know, I don't want to call it a
South Florida.
pass-through city, but yeah, a lot of people commute through Dania that don't live in the city, and we're connected to, you know, Fort Lauderdale, major city, Hollywood, major
To
city.
the airport, to the port.
Exactly. So it definitely is a county concern, and the county is addressing Dania's traffic
And-
issues.
and-
They
you
are,
know,
but I
and,
can-
opening us up more for
Agreed,
opportunities like
agreed,
Brightline.
but I also do see things like even on that Primo plan that there's not that much in there for Danny Beach. And all of these, and that's a bus plan if I'm not mistaken.
It's
It's part
bus,
of it,
light rail.
Yeah, right.
uh,
Because I've seen the
train.
presentation. I've seen the presentation twice now, actually, because she's been around all over the place. But I'm just saying that I think part of the issue is the lack of connectivity east to west. Also, that's a problem, and it does impact us. So there's a number of factors that go into it, and I'm just saying, look, it may not be something that we want to do, and that's why I actually brought it up in the first place, to find out if it was something that we wanted to do or that we should be doing. And I do understand that the county all works together because I am on the MPO and I do see all the things that go on there. But like I said, a lot of times things get not ignored, but put aside, partially because I think of where we're located and how our city is set up. So that's my concern. And I'm just trying to figure out if there is a way that we could have somebody that focuses on those sort of issues just locally, but then also working with the county, working with the state, working, with the other cities to do that.
Commissioner, one of the things that we've discussed and for the past 4 years and 4 budgets, Vice Mayor, I'm sorry, Vice Mayor.
Sorry.
One of the things that we do every year, and we've been doing that for the past 4 years plus, with every department is go over the needs. And what Candido's trying to explain with Fernando and Dinser, right behind him, is to dedicate a 40-hour position with all the benefits and everything that comes with
I
that.
understand
At
that.
this moment, it's not necessary. At the end of the day, we report to you. If you guys want us to put in a position that the professional people that do this and have been doing this for a long time feel
I'm just
that at this-
saying that I think we need to look into it and see if it's something that we do need to do. And if it isn't something we need to do right now, maybe it's something we need to do 6 months from now or
No,
something we need to
and,
do a year
and
from
we've
now.
been looking into this. And when we met for the people with Brightline, we didn't have the density. We don't have the density that Aventura has and the density that Hollywood has.
We will soon.
And we discussed with them all the projects that were coming forward. And I think that in the future we could be a Brightline stop. And we discussed everything that has been approved, but we just didn't have that density, and that was the main reason why Brightline doesn't have a stop here. And they're not going to duplicate one so closely. They're thinking about having one at
They
the
are doing one at the
airport.
airport. They are doing one at the
At the
airport.
airport. So
And
that
that,
will
and
kinda
that
be-
was part
we
of
can
the
own
issue.
that one,
That was the
you know?
bigger issue, is I think it's because they were so close and they didn't want to make it a commuter thing. Anyway. I just.
This is, we don't need to be talking about this, about budget. You dragged out for 15 minutes this item. Let's put $500,000 in the budget and pick these things up along the way as we need them. But I'm not going to sit here and listen to discuss this. It takes too long to go over a problem that you're don't even have an answer for. This is a whole discussion that needs to be done as an individual or at a meeting or differently, but not at a budget hearing. We're here to take the
It was
budget.
discussed
Well,
previously. That's why I thought it was going to be
Well,
something
yeah,
that was
but then
part
say,
of
well, I'd
this.
like to put aside $100,000 for this position possibly later on. Let's say, get a consensus.
I'd like us to consider a mid-year adjustment if
But,
we don't
to
want to
carry
put
this
it
on
in
and
right
get
now.
these
I don't know that we
discussions
want to
ready
put
here
it in
till
right
10 o'clock
now
tonight.
because I'm being told that we don't really need it right now. But I think we need to look into it to see if it's something that we need to do down the road.
Do we set aside funds for
We do.
potential
I
positions?
think that we
right?
can
How
come
about-
back with a mid-year budget adjustment.
Yeah, how about allowing us
Yeah.
to look into it,
Yeah.
to come back with what we're
That's
working on
all I'm
already?
asking.
And maybe, but if you still feel we need a position, we could come back in mid-year
Yeah.
and address it again.
And that was my initial discussion that I had before we came here, and that was also what I started this out with. So anyway, that's all I'd like to say.
No, thank you, Vice Mayor. I think it's a good idea.
Thank you.
Definitely, that's what we're here for, to discuss it. And I appreciate everybody's opinion, and thank you also, Commissioner Salvino, for moving us
That's
along. All right. Commissioner Davis?
I'm a little, it's just along the same lines. I have several different things, but since we're talking about positions, I don't know. But I did bring this up at the first budget meeting or the first budget workshop in April. I talked about the climate change and environment. I attended the climate summit and asked us to look into having a chief resiliency officer. That I know Hollywood has a full-time one. Going to those conferences, it's along the same lines because they have people who work with the cities, with neighboring cities, sister cities, Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood, Dania Beach. The counties have West Palm Beach, Monroe County. They all have different people who work and make sure that they have best practices and they have the latest information on grants and they have the latest information on for what needs to happen as far as climate and resiliency is concerned. So I may get the same answer, but I'm asking if we looked into that and what was the result from that request for that position.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Davis.
Commissioner Davis, very similar to what the Vice Mayor brought up. We have looked into it. We've been proactive in addressing resiliency in the city. We're the first city in Broward County to incorporate the highest level resiliency in our code as far as building development. We actually have a project with the MPO in addressing resiliency down Dania Beach Boulevard, all the way from Bryan Road all the way to A1A. The Chief Resiliency Officer of Broward County is working with us on amending our code,
Dr.
on working
Gerardo.
with our consultants, and they've told us you guys are way ahead of everyone else in Broward County.
That's
Eleanor
not what
has
she
been
told
meeting
me.
with them along with Corinne. So
Yeah, no, yeah.
who told you that?
Dr. Gerardo, when I attended the climate resiliency meeting. So
As a matter of fact, she gave us kudos. And
I mean,
and
that was, I know since then that, when we had to have the discussion about the RAC units, you had to go through a certain amount of, hoops in order to get
Well,
Broward
they
County to approve.
they
But
made it a requirement for us to update our code, and we're the first one in Broward County to do this. As
okay,
a matter of fact, they said we are going to other cities and telling them what you're doing so they could follow suit. I know Vice Mayor was in one of our meetings with the MPO, so she's the representative, and they said the same thing in front of her. So again, I think different things are being said, but when we're at the table with Broward County, with Dr. Gerardo, who is the Chief Resiliency Officer for all of Broward County,
I know.
we are working hand in hand along with our consultants, and we're taking the lead in Broward County.
Okay.
He covered just about everything. We've working with consultants, like he said, that works closely with Dr. Geraldo, to come up with those standards, those higher elevation standards that we have. And we'll continue to do that with all development projects. And Public Services working on the stormwater project, or the stormwater master plan, which will incorporate those resiliency efforts as well, because we're working with the same consultants.
Okay.
We do not have one on staff. We're kind of managing it within Public Services and Community Development.
That's
and
what I wanted to know,
consultants
who
as
was
well.
managing it. So you're teaming up to manage different
With
parts
consultants,
of it. Okay.
high-level consultants.
I expect nothing less, Eleanor. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Eleanor. Thank you, Candido. Anything else? Commissioner James?
I'm sorry, Commissioner Salvino. I'm gonna try to just mine is gonna be quick. I'm gonna group them all together and ask do I have consensus. I've said this several times about the two senior programs that we have not increased funding, and we have changed code talking about environmental services, and we all know how expensive going environmental friendly costs. So I'm just asking for a $5,000 increase to both programs. To help cushion those costs, and then
Do I have consensus? Oh, you
Yeah.
okay. We have consensus on that. It's $30,000 now, right?
it's 35. I'm just asking that
And then
it be 40.
Oh, it's 35. We're gonna raise it to 40.
Hmm.
Okay, I have consensus from the
I believe so,
commission.
or is it 30 and we were raising 35? I don't know.
Uh,
Yeah, 1 year.
what? It's 35.
So whatever it is,
I know. It's a
whatever it
5,000
is
increase for
currently, I
both.
want a $5,000 increase to both of the programs
Okay,
for the budget.
we have consensus.
Okay. And then the financial literacy program that I've funded out of my contingency for the past 2 years, I think, and the vice mayor has also supported this. I think, did you support this too? And Commissioner Salvino this year, to permanently have it in the budget. It's shown that it is very, it is needed, well attended, and I've heard great things about the program. I have not gone by there this year, but I want to have that in the budget at the $10,000 level. Because
What is? Can you describe the program to me? I'm
okay,
sorry.
no, that's fine.
Yeah.
Financial literacy. You have the business Speak Sakia that goes out to all of the summer camp programs and teach financial literacy. Have workbooks. I know that I'm not sure how many times that they visited, but it's for the summer camp program for the kids. Have little takeaways, learning how to save money, learning how to budget.
So this is through the city for the summer camp program.
Correct, for the city's
Okay.
a summer camp program. Just because I, to my under, excuse me. Oh, okay. To my understanding, like we bring programs and things through our contingency funds, and when we show that it's successful, that we put it into the budget. Just as like the backpack giveaway, you did it that 1 year, and now it was a success, and now we have it annually every year at that level. So I'm just asking the same for the financial literacy program. I mean, if it's not budgeted, I'll take it out of my personal contingency again, but I've done that twice. So I'll ask for consensus out there, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
I just want to make sure we're not duplicating efforts because I feel like there's another program out there that we're doing that with. Am I wrong?
Lighthouse for Students.
Is it Lighthouse?
They have it's different. It's a different program though. It's an after-school program because they do the reading
but
and
no,
the
but with
math, right?
But is it finance? Is it?
And it's tutoring. It's like an after-school program. I don't know if we.
But I feel like there's another program out there that we're. I just want to make sure we're not
Yeah.
duplicating efforts. I don't want us to end up paying for something that we don't have to pay for. That's
Commissioners,
That's
are you guys aware of any other program?
Eric, do we have more than one program?
yeah.
Let's just put it
I
to bed.
just want to make sure because for
No,
some
that's
reason,
fine.
just it's in the back of my mind.
Good evening, Eric Brown, Parks Director. No, we have one literacy program. What is it? 4
Fi-
weeks, 5 weeks?
The financial literacy.
Financial
program.
literacy, yes. We have one financial literacy program.
And that's the one that she's talking about.
Yes.
Okay. All right. That's.
And
just wanted to make sure.
all of our programs, just so you guys know, we're teaming up and we're looking at all of our programs to perfect them and say what we want to keep and what we want to table and all of that. I mean, the financial literacy program has been successful, as Commissioner James said. I wasn't there for them as well because it was in my office, and on Tuesdays I would come in late once they're gone. But but we definitely want to look at all of our programs to make sure. So if it's in the budget or if it's not, if Commissioner James will pay for
How
it,
much is it?
It was a
It
little
was
under
10,000.
9,000,
It was not
7,000.
not
seven-
this year.
Yeah,
This year, what was it? I don't.
it was either 7 and 9,000, between 7
It
and
was
9,000.
9,000.
Yeah,
90 something.
so
whatever.
it's just one program.
Okay. That's
Okay.
all I want to know.
I have
Thank you.
consensus.
Yes, yes,
$10,000 put aside for the financial literacy program. All right, we have consensus.
All right. I'm done.
That's it. All right. Commissioner Salvino, I know you've been waiting. I'm sorry. Okay. Commissioner Davis, please.
Yes, I do have a few things on my list here. You're going to be okay, Commissioner Salvino. I do have a question because this is something that has come to me. And it was also part of my program. We have an emergency disaster fund, but I wanted to make sure if we have an emergency disaster plan. I know we have a hurricane plan, but do we have an emergency disaster plan? I think this past storm on April 12th taught us a lot as far as communication is concerned. Do we have a point person if something unexpected happens? Like hurricanes, we can plan for days in advance and be prepared. But are we prepared for? Do we have a communication plan? God forbid if something happened like it did in Hollywood with the Broad Walk. Do we have a plan in place to have a family reunification center? Do we have those things in place? Who's my contact if I know that I need to? Can I go down this street? Is this street flooded? Do we have those things in place? And so if we do, great. If not, I would like to have a plan for that. I know we have a fund for it, but I wanted to see what it is that we already have in place, or if we can do something better to make sure that we have clear communication in case of an emergency. Because
Absolutely. We've been doing this for a long time, and we've been doing it together for a long time. We would never go willy nilly on anything having to do with our emergency. We have it when actually we have an emergency operations center and an emergency operations team. And whether it's a hurricane, and we've dealt with many, or whether it's something like COVID that we had never dealt with before, we go into full EOC mode, from the communication to activating our code red to activating our EOC center in different modes. Candido, is there anything that
Yeah,
I missed?
absolutely. We have what's called a comprehensive emergency management plan.
that's
SEM.
what I'm asking for.
Every year we update the plan. The
Okay.
plan addresses not just hurricanes, but all emergencies. Anything from fires, anything from any disaster form, the plan addresses it. Our chief Pelisar is the main point person overseeing emergency services from police and fire with BSO. I'm the main point person for any services under the city, public services, finance, or any other of the departments. We follow the county's activation. They have activation levels, and they let us know when to activate it. They start, let's say, a 6 hour, an Alpha Bravo, then we determine when we activate ours depending on the severity. So, to answer your question, we do have a plan. The plan is in place. It gets reviewed every year. We update it every year. And if there's ever a point where you need to notify or get information, the manager is the point person if there's an emergency.
Okay. Well, I wasn't aware of that specific plan. That's what I was asking for, and I would like to have a copy of it.
Absolutely.
Because
And so-
I really, that's
And a little bit of additional information for everyone, the residents and everyone to know. When we activate our EOC, the critical departments have already representatives that will become part of the EOC, including a finance person, including an HR person, including a law enforcement person, including a communications.
Yeah.
The team is already set. We activate it. We get together. Right now, it's in public services, as you are aware. We're trying to build a new EOC where the fire department is, but we stay there overnight. There's cots, there's supplies, there's food. Everything is already stored. Every year, we look at our supplies. Anything that's expired, we get rid of. Anything new that we need, we purchase. The chief this year purchased John boats, which are the short boats, to be able to get to people due to the heavy floods that we've been receiving. Law enforcement just ordered high vehicles in order to be able to travel through the floods, as well as public services. So every year during the budget season, we determine what we need, or if the environment changes, what we have to go purchase. But the team is in place, the plan is in place, and the chief and I every year review it, working with Broward County to ensure that we have the training, the certifications, as well as updating the points of contact and our communications. We have radios, we have global phones, everything that we would need in case power goes out and there's no way to communicate. We are ready, Commissioner.
Additionally,
that's
Commissioner,
exactly
as you
what
know,
I
you went to Tallahassee with us, and we were advocating for EOC. We didn't get the funding, but we didn't stop there. We put a proposal together for the federal government, and we received monies. And in addition to that, we have ARPA money. So it's very exciting
Right.
that we look to break ground on an actual EOC building.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Candido, that's really what I was not aware of all those different tiers and all those different levels. I would just like to view it just because to me that gives us a lot of safety and a lot of comfort to know what that communication plan is. So that's really what I was asking. I wasn't aware that we had something so specific. How it was updated and all of that. So I really appreciate that comprehensive response. Chief, would
Yes,
you like to add something?
really quick to add, Commissioner. So you know, we activated during the floods. We're on top of that game, and I try to keep myself. Hey, there you go. All right, so I try to stay up to the cutting edge, and I attend every emergency managers in the county. I attend all their meetings. I attend all the classes. Make sure that as your representative, I'm up to the current knowledge with anything that has to do that I can come back, report to the city, and make sure that we're on cutting edge.
The whole system got cut off.
Okay. Okay. I think I'm back. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much for that. I'm going to move on to what I'm seeking funds for. We are approaching our 120th anniversary. I know there's a lot of different elements in place. I have spoken to the city manager in Candido, but there is an amazing keepsake opportunity that is, presents itself, and it is to commemorate the 120th anniversary and the incorporation of Dania Beach, something that we could share with our residents, our key partners, and our constituents. I really would like for us to consider keeping this to have funds set aside because we are looking at our Renaissance. This is something that is going to have the theme of then, now, and tomorrow. So it speaks to our past, our present, and our future. And it would incorporate the history of the residents, the history of the dignitaries, the mayor, all the city officials, and all the key people from the past, the present, and the future. And I would like to set aside funds to have that at least. I don't know if we have 50,000 left in our current, but I really want to look at being able to put an RFP out so that can go out and come back to us. And I do have a sample that I would like to show you of what it is, but I really want to be able to get the process started with an RFP. So it's a commemorative book. It's a book. It's an anniversary book, basically. Yes.
It's in planning. I guess I asked the city manager in planning for the 120th year celebration. Do you have it in that budget with all of that to be able to have that book?
We've started to look at all the possibilities, and we had a great meeting with Commissioner Davis. Next week we have a meeting with the mayor and our special events committee. Rather than just throw out a number, we're going to be coming to you because some of it is going to be in this fiscal year, but the majority is going to be in next fiscal year. But what Commissioner Davis shared with me was a really beautiful book, and it's like taking the book, Mr. Mayor, that you brought to us, that has the history of our city, which will be incorporated in the then, like yesterday, today, and tomorrow. But this company that we met with brought us the one that Miami Gardens did for their 20th anniversary. So here we are going into 120th. So it'd be kind of cool if we could do some sort of commemorative book for our city.
So the question was, can you put that in the budget for the for everything with it because it goes hand in hand in it?
One of the discussions that I had with Commissioner Davis for this particular piece, we'd like to see if we can earmark from the 325,000 that we have, if we can earmark some of it in next year's budget and maybe use some of what's left in this year's budget to also consider that.
I'm fine with it.
Right.
I'm fine with it.
So it's,
Yeah. Vice Mayor?
As long as we do follow the proper procurement procedures and we go, I mean,
Oh, absolutely. That
because we
was
don't want to automatically assume that the same company is
No.
going to be the right one for us. That's all.
that was the main
That's all.
topic of the conversation we had
Okay,
with
that's-
Commissioner
then I'm fine.
Davis, and
I'm fine.
to make sure that we follow the proper procurement.
That's all I'm worried
So
about.
if there's anything for this year that we can appropriate, and next year, and then the last piece would be in fiscal 25.
I like that idea, Commissioner Davis. It's definitely a major undertaking, and yeah.
And it will take over about a year to get done, so that's why I wanted to get consensus, get started on it, take the remaining funds that we have in our commission contingency to get started on that. And then they will require a liaison, a historian, so it's gonna be a huge, huge undertaking. But when I tell you, whoever the final bid is, because we don't have it yet, but it is a lot of different moving parts, and we will need to work intensely with whoever is selected in order to make it happen. So if we can get approval for the rest of the remainder of the contingency funds here, and then the remainder in next budget year, fiscal year 2025, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. We have consensus from the commission. All right.
Great, we'll
Perfect.
get started on that RFQ maybe.
Yes. All right.
Wonderful. Sorry, Commissioner Davis.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I really still like having the idea of setting aside advertising funds, whether we use them or not. I think that they came in handy. I wanted to see if we had consensus to renew the advertising and branding budget, and we had $100,000 the last time.
Commissioner James.
Yes, I'm interested to know what the new marketing director, or she's not here.
Nanette's not here.
We met
I know
Nanette.
she's not. No, I know she's not
Yeah,
here,
Nanette will
but
return on Monday. We believe that we should add some of that money because we're going to be putting our first ever community newsletter out to really show all our residents. We have 35,000 plus residents. Everything that's happening, everything that you all are supporting, all the projects that we have in parks, all the projects that we have in stormwater, in infrastructure improvements.
so my question is, she doesn't already have this in her budget?
How much of it is in the budget?
We worked with Nanette and we programmed $110,000 in operating expenditures for the marketing and communications division. So those funds are there for newsletter, for various purposes, social media marketing, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, if she needs, I think that if she needs something, to come back and ask, but I wish she was here so she could kind of talk about it. But I would think that, different departments come and they submit their budgets and they have these things in their budget. And I haven't been able to ask her those questions. That was my thought.
And the key is, besides that 110 that we've appropriated, if we need to come and do a mid-year budget adjustment because we need more, and we may need more because we want to do something very special, we'll come to you, and we appreciate your support on that.
Okay. So you're good with it? Okay. She has a budget, but if they're saying, go ahead.
Well, our $100,000 that we had kind of got transferred to Nanette for a budget. So I wouldn't think it's necessary to have another $100,000 for advertising on our contingency fund. And obviously, we could still use our contingency fund towards advertising. I just don't want to dedicate it towards advertising.
That's fine.
Yeah.
All right. And then I want to look at maybe 25,000 for partnership funds. I don't know if you guys go out to different events as much as I do, but there's different opportunities that present themselves, and I would just like to make sure if there was something that we wanted to be able to do with another entity, that we have partnership funds or sponsorship funds set aside for the things that we would want to sponsor or the things that we would want to partner for. Fine with everything.
Do I have consent from the commission? Vice Mayor?
I was just gonna. It's kind of what we've been using our contingency money for.
Yeah.
So I don't know that we necessarily need to put money aside for that. If we just continue, I mean, I don't think we really had a major issue using contingency funds. Am I wrong?
No,
Good.
I think
we
we utilized them very well this year.
Yeah. And we each have different things that we might want to sponsor. It may not necessarily always be the same thing, and that's part of why we have that money.
And also, I agree. We don't want to limit it to
Yeah.
25,000. We might spend more. So
Yeah.
it's so far, I think we've wisely invested our contingency funds, and it's good to leave it open for multiple ideas, and for us individually, ideas, and us coming together as a commission. Commissioner James.
Yeah, I was just gonna piggyback off of that and say that we have our personal contingency funds, and then we also have the commission contingency funds, and then city manager has her contingency funds that we all tap into as well. So I think we have a lot of different contingencies that, but if you brought us a great opportunity, I don't think you brought us a great opportunity if we've turned it down. Well,
No.
you know, this
And
administration
I
is,
guess that's really what it is, because I do see that there's different opportunities to
Yeah.
come forward, or potentially that could come forward, that we would want to partner. And I guess then I'll just bring it forward as a presentation, and we can decide that we can, if we want to work with it or not.
yeah, Frank has been very good at finding money in the budget.
And that's it for me.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. Thank you very much to our finance team and our director Frank for his presentation. Thank you to the commission. It's a very productive meeting, if you ask me. Looking forward to finalizing the budget. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.